All right, welcome everyone to today's episode on the Good and Head podcast. Thank you so much for listening. For all of you that are followers, I think are really going to love today's episode. Today's guest, his name is Connor, and I met him on Mill Avenue at a store where I decided to go and get some mushrooms, the lion mane mushrooms, which I found out are excellent at improving cognition and sort of empowering the neurons to electrically communicate much quicker. And after doing this for a couple of years, it's proven really useful for me. Welcome to the show, Connor. Thanks for coming on today.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Could you explain to everyone where you work and what it is you do?
Yeah. So I work it's a little herbal apothecary in Tempe, Arizona on Mill Avenue called Happy, Healthy, Horny, High Herbs. We also have like a little website that the name goes by Rainbow Bliss Botanicals as well. It's like kind of like our product line more so. But I've worked there on and off for quite a while, and just basically our goal is to bring medicines from plants that are like ethically harvested, organic, pesticide free, at like a really reasonable price. And like you can come into the shop and ask a bunch of questions. Like you don't have to have any knowledge on herbs at all. You could just come in and be like, hey, I have trouble sleeping, or I have trouble with this, or I'm trying to be healthier in this way. And the people working there, including myself, will help you find different herbal remedies, whether it be a tea or something applied topically, or something that's like a tincture that you just drip into your mouth.
Yeah. And I know the other day we had come in and we were talking, and you had recommended a few things. One of them was sleepy juice, basically is what I call it, but it's herbal concoction that doesn't taste very great. I've taken it a few times, and we'll see what happens. It was for a sleep aid, basically, so that we
Was
can.
it the tincture or just the tea?
Yeah, the tincture.
Yeah. I mean, valerian root's funny because it kind of smells like stinky feet. Like we have a really nice valerian, but like a few years ago, the valerian we had literally smelled like old stinky shoes pretty much. And like a lot of people really didn't like it. The newer one's pretty all right, but yeah, I mean, I always tell people like a lot of herbal remedies don't taste particularly great. The more bitter, or the more kind of like that bitter tea flavor that it has, usually that means there's more alkaloids that will be more beneficial chemicals in it. That, I don't know, the longer you start taking herbs, the more you'll start like really appreciating some bitter herbs or something, because you know there's like a lot of goodness in it.
Yeah. I've noticed that everyone that we've talked to, the many times that we've gone to the store to gotta get a refill on the lion's mane, that they've all been very knowledgeable and answered the questions well, and they were very helpful. It's a very popular little store, and we love it. So thanks for what you're doing.
Yeah, no, I mean, that's kind of like why a lot of us do it. We just like helping people find certain medicinal herbs that they probably would have never been able to find out if they were just Googling or something like that. Like that's why I started anyways. And I know why a lot of the other herbalists started doing that was because they had some type of health problem, or like started using tea for something specifically, and then was like, wow, this is amazing. And I was doing a Western medicine route before and didn't do nearly as much as this. And I want to help other people find remedies and stuff that are like a lot easier on the body, and just like a lot like just easier to take, and less prescriptions and stuff like that. And that's like why I started. I had a bunch of prescriptions for my lungs, and then like anxiety and depression pills, and over the years have just added on more and more different herbs. And now like I don't take any medicine at all, really. Like I don't know the last medicine I've taken. Like there's an herb for everything, and I just want to help people find that out too, and find some benefit. And once you get hooked, like take a lion's mane mushroom or something, then all of a sudden you're like, okay, what else is out there? Because this stuff's amazing.
It is, absolutely. And it's interesting how for thousands of years, I mean, People have discovered and experimented with herbs and different substances to heal the body and the mind. And one thing I'm really interested in is this group that you've put together that you're doing. Would you tell the audience a little about that
Yeah,
and
yeah.
why you
So
do it?
yeah, recently I started a group for like addiction management. I just wanted to make a group that was for people to be able to come in and express any feelings they have without having obligations to like a 12-step program or anything like that. But then also find out information on herbs that can help manage addiction too, whether it be an herb that isn't as addictive and doesn't have as much effect, but still gives them some sedation or some dopamine or whatever it is they're using the addiction for in the first place, but in a lot less harmful way to their body and a lot more manageable where like you don't have to use all the time, or also helping people find herbs that will help them, slowly taper off or stop altogether whatever drug they may be addicted to or bad habit. It doesn't even have to necessarily be a drug, just to like help them with the withdrawals and the mood swings and all of that. And I mean, there's just so much to it. Like, I just basically want to offer a group that people can come and ask tons of questions. And then through those questions, other people may have answers that they would have never thought to ask.
Mm.
Or they might say something they've been doing that someone else hears and is like, oh, this works for them. Maybe I should try it. We have a similar path. And so I just kind of wanted to make this group and done it once before, just started. And not too many people came up, but the one guy that did show up, he's coming to this next class, and we've had him on like a regimen now for like a month, and we just keep tinkering with it. So that's kind of what I'm also doing through that class, is just offering advice on herbs and like having them have my numbers so they can come into the shop when I'm working, or if I'm not working, still get a tea blend made, to like keep modifying it until something works for them, because everyone's so different.
Mm.
And I like to tell people that at the beginning of the class, like, you might have to try a bunch of different remedies before you really start to notice a big benefit. But like, I'm willing to help you through that. The reason I started it was just because when I was sober for 6 years from all opiates, and then I had a little hiccup in the mix and just like got really depressed and relapsed. And in that relapse, I was like looking for a lot of help, and there was tons of facilities and stuff, but they were outrageously expensive.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm pretty broke. Like, I don't make a lot of money, and at the time I was obviously spending more money on my addiction. So I just thought it was flabbergasting how they were charging thousands of dollars to people that needed help, that like everyone knows that most people with an addiction problem really don't have a lot of money to spare. They spend it every dime they've got. And then also, like, because of COVID, so many more people were relapsing or starting addictions and trying to get help, that like every facility that was free was full for months. And I was just like, well, I can't wait like that. What like, so many people could die while waiting for something like that when they're trying to get help, but then there's no help. They're like, we'll help you in 2 months or whatever. So I was just kind of like really taken aback, and just worked on myself and went to some therapy, and then been sober again, and was just like, I should just start a group, because like some simple group like what I'm offering would have been like probably all I would have needed, just to have like some support and some like outside knowledge. And then like reassurance is a big thing too, having people that actually have gone through some similar path, or like someone that went through it and has gotten through, and then I could ask like, hey, how did you get over this upset, or like, what did you do when you were at your lowest or something, instead of going back on addiction. And that's why I was like offering this group, just so people can have that opportunity to talk to each other, and then, like I said, gain some herbal knowledge on stuff that may help them maintain and not relapse fully, and instead just do a gentler herb that then can help them for the week of, or help them with their mind.
That's incredible that you're doing that. And this is all like free. You're just doing this for the community. Is that right?
Yeah, yeah. I just started offering it. Like, it's gonna be about once a month. I may bump it up to 2 times a month, but I was just like, I wanted to offer a class that people can just literally swing by and come through and have like a little group meeting and like express any pain or struggles they may be going through, or just ask questions, or just meet with like-minded people. That, just that support group alone is like really huge. And a support group that doesn't have like obligations, or like, having to show up a certain day, or they're like wondering where you're at, like just come on your own free will. And that's like big for me. I have trouble with obligations. So when something is like forced at me, or like seeming like if I miss, they're gonna freak out or something, like I end up not wanting to go. So that's why I was really trying to offer this group something simple and free and no obligations, just to meet up, have somewhere to talk.
Well, that's amazing. When we first walked in the other day, I could almost feel your energy, and it's filled with kindness and compassion, understanding, empathy. And I- I'm curious where you were able to cultivate all of that from. Do you have certain practices, spiritual, mental, emotional, physical, any kind of a routine or rituals, things that you do that are most helpful for you?
I mean, I was raised with like that mentality. My mom was like really big on teaching principles of like treat others the way you want to be treated, and like simple things like that that like really resonated a lot with me. And then the older I got, the more I was just like, I mean, this world's not very fair. And like I moved from Montana down to Phoenix, and it was like this
Wow.
big awakening where I was just like, oh whoa, like people really will take advantage of you. And that just like really, I don't know why, it just annoyed me so bad. And I was just like, I'm not gonna fall into this. Like I don't want to be like ever taking advantage of someone or doing something just looking out for me. And that was a big thing when I was in high school too. That was the first time I ever did a psychedelic, and just had like this big eye-opening moment on that. It was a really big dose of Hawaiian baby wood rose seeds.
Mm.
And I like just was like, wow, like I thought of every single point where I had done something only thinking out for me, and seeing my actions affect someone else and them being hurt. And it like just brought me to tears. And I was just like, I don't want to do that again. Like the few times I have since that experience, like it literally like crushes my soul. And I just, every time I learn and then try to do better for future, relationships with friends or family, or just even random people. Like that's like one of my main goals, and why I want to just dedicate my life to helping people, because I think there's enough people trying to help themselves in the world, that even if like 4 or 5 people are out trying to help people and do the right thing, like that can balance out the odds of all the bad that's being happened.
I love that outlook, providing balance in the universe through our actions. Yeah, that that kind of that hit home.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's not like you have to do anything super special. Like just go out every day and like do stuff just because you want to be kind and loving, like not for some reward. Like I see some people going out and doing charity or doing all this while on social media for like you can always tell when someone's doing it for like clout, basically, instead of just doing it because they want to do good. And that's why I think dedicate myself so much. And like I do a lot of psychedelics for that reason too, of like reminding myself, like, just want to help people and do my best in life to be a good person, and know that that's enough for me. Like, I don't need very much else from this life.
I'm curious about the psychedelics. What made you try that out, and what makes you continue? What do you get from that? Do you get downloads or lessons, or a reconnection opportunity? What is it for you?
I mean, like, I started in high school, I was struggling with like a lot of addiction even then. I went to therapy for cough syrup. That's what I like, the first ever addiction that I had. And then it was like just trying out different substances. I was like, oh, there's so much that, was bad in people's book, that I was like, I wonder like what all this is about. And I really wanted to try psychedelics because I just read on them, and then, like popular cultural movies, and like, I don't know, just like silly sayings in movies, even sometimes I was like, huh. And I'd look it up and read about it. And it's just like, I wonder what like having a hallucination is even really about. Like everyone's description was different, and I just was very curious. And in Montana, finding like acid or mushrooms is very difficult, especially if you're not really into a scene of it yet.
Mm.
And so I just kind of like started researching, and this is also what got me into my herbal career, was like intoxicating herbs used by different cultures, because I was like, yeah, like I knew that some cultures out there must be using some psychedelic thing for different ritual purposes or for shamanic uses. And so I really started digging into that and found out a lot of different herbs. And the one that I just felt called to, I guess, or that I was really excited about, was the Hawaiian baby wood rose seeds, just because they were more potent than, say, like the morning glory seeds that a lot of like South American cultures used in rituals. And I was just like really curious about trying that. And that's what I ordered online at the time. Like you could just order it really easy from Amazon, which I laugh about still to this day, that Amazon sold me my first psychedelic. And so I'd order them, and I was like pretty young, like sophomore year, and just took them before bed one night, not even knowing like what was about to happen or even how long it lasted. I didn't know what to expect. And did 12 of the seeds, which I usually say now is like comparable to a tab of acid. And then decided about an hour later, when I was getting giggly but not really seeing a lot of visuals, I should do 12 more. And then that was like a very big dose. And soon after was just, like I said, laying there thinking about different past events, and like having a pretty big ego death for my first time. Like that was very unexpected. You read about it, but you don't really know what to expect from an ego death unless you've really experienced like a big trip. And just was like very taken aback at how much it made me think about my life and what I wanted to do with it. And so then I just continued on with psychedelics from there, and just kind of use it in the same purpose of like always trying to learn. That's a big thing for me. Like I just always feel like no one should ever feel like they've learned enough, and that they should learn more. And I feel like psychedelics really help me learn more about myself and how I interact with people. But then also they really help me personally when I'm in times of struggle, or like some thoughts or something that I can't really accept totally. I can sit on that while taking the psychedelics, and then meditate on that while going through a pretty substantial, like I usually do a pretty big dose if I have like some mental struggle or something. And by the end, I'm always just like so okay with whatever it may be, something that could have caused me so much pain before, that I just was like not wanting to be okay with and like holding on to. And by the end of the trip, I'm just like let it go, like go with it, go with the flow of the universe kind of mentality. And that's why I tend to do them a lot, is because it helps me be okay with things that I'm normally not gonna let go of so easily, and like mentally be okay with it.
It's really interesting to me. So they help you and empower you to actually let things go that you're holding on to.
Yeah.
Um, I've studied and read and listened to podcasts about addiction, and it's my opinion that every single human on this earth, whether they want to admit it or not, has some kind of an addiction. I've heard that addiction is basically trauma or pain that is unchecked, that hasn't been dealt with or felt fully, in order to allow it to to just be and accept it enough to let it go, and then move on from it. And I mean, I'm the first to admit I've got addictions. I have most of my life, and the traumas that I experienced were more through misperceptions, really, because I had a great childhood, great parents, a great life, and nothing super traumatic that I can remember anyway, it has really come about unless I've made it traumatic in my mind. And that's kind of where Good in the Head came in. I don't know. I was all about, the mental aspect of life. But then I started to realize, oh, there's like a spiritual aspect, a physical aspect, an emotional aspect, and they all are integrated and they coincide and they all affect one another greatly. Um, what has your life experience been like, and what has it taught you up to this point? And what are the main takeaways that would be useful for others who may be suffering or going through addictions of any kind?
I mean, I had two parents that loved me a lot and that really did their best to raise a like kind, responsible son, and my sister the same way. Um, they had a lot of conflict growing up, like not early on, but the more my sister and I grew up, the more we began to realize that their marriage was troubled, and they just kind of powered through it just because they had kids. And I think that's why my sister and I kind of say we had like a lot of struggles with the way we viewed the world, because my mom wanted everything to be like open and honest and like figure out arguments right away, whereas my dad wanted to push it down and like tell us not to show emotions because that's how he was raised. And he'd just sit quietly and never share any parts of like what was bothering him. I mean, even to this day, it's always like, I'm fine, everything's good. Like he never can acknowledge something that's bad. So it's just like witnessing that conflict between two people that were just very opposite in their mentality of like thoughts and emotions caused my sister and I some struggle with figuring out, like which way, because my mom was so extreme on one end and like would drag stuff out of you even if like you needed time to not have it come out of you. Whereas my dad was like, I don't want to hear it. Don't whine, like don't cry. And so my sister and I both struggled for a long time on figuring out proper ways of communication and just understanding how to like convey thoughts or feelings to other people. And that caused me particularly like a lot of problems with the way I interacted with people, just because for a long time I was kind of more like my dad, where I was just like, don't show emotion. And then after starting using psychedelics, I was more so like, show too much emotion. And it was like caused a lot of conflict for me. And I think that's why I went to addiction, to just escape that for a little while. Like I use it as like a numbing agent where any sign of conflict or something, instead of dealing with it, because I don't really like, I didn't know how at the time, I just run and hide and hold it all in and forget about those emotions, because I'd either express them too openly and cause people to feel uncomfortable or like not want to hear it all, or I'd just hold it in and never share it, and then it caused like a lot of pain that way too. And so over the years, just learning how to deal with that. And like I write now a lot. I just have a journal where if any conflict comes up, I write it in a lot. And if it's something that comes up all the time in my writing, I then choose that I should find a good way to express that to whoever it is that I'm feeling like I need to express that to. Whether like I haven't had a therapist in a while, but I did do that a lot with my therapist, and then just learned how to start doing it just in my book. And if I have a problem in a relationship or with someone, I'll bring it to them at a separate time, and just kind of tell them like, this has been on me a lot, and if you want to hear it, that's fine. If you don't want to, then that's okay too, and I'll just keep writing it out. Because I don't know, like I don't want to be an emotional pirate either. Like I don't think it's fair to be able to spew a lot of emotion onto someone without them wanting to be accepting of that. I bartended for years, and I got that happening to me all the time. I was like the local neighborhood therapist, and I was just like, I don't want, like, why is this okay? Like people shouldn't be able to just tell me all their problems unless like I openly welcome that. And so I started being like thinking more about that and how
Huh.
to properly express that and ask people about that.
That's interesting. I related to every word. I mean, just I think in general, most of us, probably all of us, are far more similar than we are different. And I used to drive cab for about 3 years, so I really related to the bartending story and the whole emotional thing and the spewing. And I've been guilty of all of those things myself, man.
I think we
Um,
all have. Sometimes you can't hold it in.
Yeah, I think you found some really healthy ways to really navigate through it.
Yeah, I mean, writing's good. It took me a long time to even start writing. Before, like, I tended a lot of plants, like I had tons and tons of plants, and I just sit there talking to the plants instead, being like, yo, this is really bothering me, like just spreading it out to some living being, at least maybe one that couldn't respond. But and then that's when I just started being like, all right, writing, so I can look back on it more instead of just like, if I have a consistent thought coming through for like a week or two, I'm like, all right, writing it out's not resolving it enough. Maybe I should see if I can talk to the person or whatever it may be and figure it out a different way. Or, like I said, do psychedelics to help me let go of that thing and find resolution with it and within myself. So that way it doesn't keep affecting me in my life.
Yeah. And I mean, we send out energetic ripples towards everyone that's around us. I mean, throughout the universe. I mean, they've been able to measure these energies that pulsate off of us now that are either harmful or really empowering, and that comes from our thinking, our heart, the way that we're feeling causes thoughts that coincide with those feelings, and then thoughts create the feelings, and it's sort of a self-perpetuated process, that we go through. But from what I can tell, and the things you've been through, and the things you've learned, and where you're at in life right now, it's sort of your purpose to create an energy that others can really feel and benefit from. And I love how you said, throwing that out into the universe to create balance because of everything that truly is going on that is just sick and depraved and twisted, that's reality of it. And I think, honestly, man, can you imagine if every single person decided to begin to do that in their own way? Like you said, we're all sort of different as well. And what a world we could create if we all kind of got on board with the whole kindness and empathy and compassion, unconditional love, and no expectations. That's another thing. So years ago, my mom quoted to me something that I found out later. It's from Alcoholics Anonymous, that expectations are premeditated resentments. I was like, damn, that's deep.
Yeah.
Anytime I've been disappointed in anyone, including myself, is because I had an expectation.
Yeah. And it's hard not to have expectations. Like, you want to, and you like can say that to certain people around you, like, I don't have any expectations around you, but deep down you still do. Like, you expect honesty and like things like that. Like, maybe it's not even a bad expectation per se, but you still do. And when that expectation's not fulfilled, like when they're not honest or don't tell you everything about something that you were asking about, like, it still hurts.
Yeah.
So I definitely agree with that statement. Like, any and all expectations can cause you to feel pain or suffering or anxiety or whatever it may be. And it's hard to like remind yourself of that, but even just keeping that in mind on a daily basis can really help you not have so much disappointment from other people around you, because you don't have to.
Yeah. So expectations and preferences, if we can sort of take a good look at those and prioritize and minimize those in our lives, I've found that to be useful. Um, I'd love to know your opinion between medicine, like pharmaceutical drugs, and plant medicine, and your thoughts on big pharma.
Yeah, I mean, so like, I my sister works in like the medicine field, like Western medicine. And so like I definitely have a good background of both. Like, I'd constantly send ideas and my sister and I kind of argue amongst each other. I'm definitely a big proponent of like, there's an herb for everything. And if you would just go to your local apothecary and figure out some herbal remedies or medicines or whatever first, And then say if it is a serious problem, there's also doctors. Like I don't disagree with either. Like there's no herb that can like, you know, stitch you up. Like you still need modern medicine for certain things. But I just definitely vouch for like using plant medicine first, and then if you need something more so with more side effects or whatever, you can always turn to a doctor. I mean, the roommate that I live with, she's a nurse, and it's nice having that perspective too, but then she sends people over to the herb shop as well. Like I think if society had more of a view like that, where you'd go to a doctor per se and they'd say, hey, we have this medicine, but I think you should start out with, say, valerian root for sleep instead of taking this really addictive habit forming pill for sleep. And if that works, great. If not, we're here for you. I think that's like a big thing with society. It's like one extreme or the other. Like a lot of herbalist people that I know are like so anti-medicine, like of modern medicine, that it's just sometimes you're like, okay, well, you need to have a balance, just like with anything. Like I had a buddy that got a tooth infection. He was trying different herbal remedies and stuff, and I was like, bro, you should just go to a dentist. Like those tooth infections can go up to your brain and kill you. Like they're serious.
Yeah.
And he kept just ignoring it and ignoring it until he finally his face swelled up, and I was just like, you need to know when to have balance. That's all I basically believe with it. I've been screwed over by modern medicine a lot, like with my lungs. I have COPD from a lot of bronchitis as a kid, and so I've had breathing problems for a long time and had an inhaler for a long time and just used that regularly throughout the day. And I finally just got fed up with it and decided like I'm going to try and see if I can fix that with herbs. And the more I worked on it and the more I just studied and like came up with remedies and stopped smoking cannabis because my lungs just couldn't handle it. I've been like almost a year without my inhaler, probably even longer now, and
Nice.
like never had to use it. So there are points where maybe you could be getting away with herbs if you just study hard enough or find the right help. But at the same time, there are moments where you could really use a doctor.
That's phenomenal. Real quickly, I'll share my story because something you said in there sparked um, something within me pretty strongly. You said we all need to find and participate in a certain balance. And back in 1999, I had a wife and two kids. She was a stay-at-home mom, and I was out working anywhere from like 14, 18 hours a day, 7 days a week for months on end. And I became incredibly physically and emotionally, mentally exhausted. And I was a little grumpy and snappy. And my boss told me, you know, you're kind of moody. And it kind of got to me. It hurt. It pissed me off. And so I went home and discussed it with the woman I was married to at the time, you know, and she said, well, maybe you should go to the doctor and just check it out, you know. And right away, they just said, oh, yeah, we got Prozac. It's an amazing magical pill. You're depressed and this will help, you know. And that started my journey on pharmaceuticals for the next 15 years. That was my go-to. I was put on antidepressants. I tried over 20 different antidepressants, mood stabilizers like lithium, Depakote, Depakine. And I was, for the most part, suicidal almost every single day for 15 years. And I was like, man, there's something wrong with me. I'm broken, you know, and my self-image just suffered a great deal. Nobody ever taught me that there were herbs and natural medicines to try out. I had just never crossed my mind, never went through my radar, even though I had gone to a massage therapy college and was a massage therapist. And now I realize, you know, I just wasn't listening. I wanted it to be easy. I wanted to just take a pill and fix me. And your process was, hey, you know, you may have to try a ton of different things and different levels. I mean, we're also different chemically and hormonally. And so that was interesting to me. And I really needed to hear that. So thank you.
Yeah. I mean, I had the same story. Like came like I was depressed a lot growing up in my high school years, and then when I came to college, had like a really bad panic attack. And the first thing a doctor gave this, like I was 18 years old, she's like, "Oh, here's Xanax," and gave me a Xanax prescription. And it was just crazy to see my grades drop because my memory just went out the window, and just I literally felt myself needing it more and more just to not feel like I'm going crazy. And I got lucky. I kind of figured that out in the beginning, like after about a year of trying tons of different medications, one that even like gave me hallucinations throughout the day, that I was like, there's got to be something else out. I literally went from, just having this one panic attack to I can't make it through the day without having an anxiety attack and my breathing tightens, and I was having to take tons of pills for it. And I discovered skullcap because I was at that time I was in college. I was still going to the herb shop right there, and I just was like trying out an herb that I had read about a little bit, and it was unbelievable how much a simple herb that you just drink in a tea helped me with my anxiety so much without making me feel high or dumbed down or forgetful. And I was just like, all right, I got to try some other herbs. And over the last, like 7 or 8 years, I've just slowly tried different herbs for mood regulation to the point where like I'm bipolar, so I still have like little swings here and there, but I catch it earlier on now and just take certain herbs for it. Like albizia bark is a really good one for lifting you out of downtrodden spirits. So I save that, and then I keep ashwagandha out of my daily routine so that when I'm feeling like hitting a low point and really going downhill, I can start taking both of those together, and within a few days I'm lifted back up and doing really good, and my depression's gone and my anxiety's gone.
Wow.
So it's
See, I
just
was,
that's why I
yeah.
like helping people at the herb shop. Like so many college kids come in and they're like just kind of looking around. I'm like, oh, we got herbs that help you sleep or for anxiety. And then they're all like, well, what do you have for anxiety? And I'm like, literally like, oh my God, thank goodness I'm helping this person maybe find something that works better without going down the same path of a bunch of crazy pills that made me feel like I was going crazy.
That is awesome. The one that black root, something like for the anxiety, what was that again?
Albizia bark.
Albizia bark. And then you had mentioned another one at the
Oh,
beginning of it.
skullcap.
Yeah. What is that?
It's it's like in the mint family. It's just a leaf that you drink as a tea, and like we
What?
have capsules of it or like a little tincture of it too, a little extract. But
Wow.
it helps your body better deal with stress. It's like super gentle. Like even the first time taking it, you might not notice any change, but like after a few days in a row of just taking skullcap tea or some capsules of it, like I usually will, like if someone has anxiety but they're not willing to try it out, I'll just give them like 14 capsules, 1 week's worth, where they take 2 a day. I'm like, just try these, please. Like, if you have anxiety, this is so perfect for you. And like almost every time I see them come in later and they're like, that worked. Like, I don't know. I can't believe it. I didn't believe you at all.
Yeah.
And now I'm coming in to buy some more skull cap. What else do you have?
Yeah.
It's
Wow.
just so simple.
That's awesome. I love that. I've got a ton of people that will really like to hear that there are some other options besides the ones that they're experimenting
Yeah.
with now.
Yeah. Damiana and skull cap are like my two main ones. For Damiana's mood regulating and hormone regulating, but gentle, and skull cap's really stress relieving and calming. And the two of them combined is like this happy, relaxed tea that you could still go to work on, still function totally. You don't have like lowered inhibitions or not want to do stuff that you normally would want to do, like errands and stuff.
Mhm.
But more than anything, just helps me get through the day without like a bunch of depression or mood swings, and then at the same time just like is gentle enough where I don't feel like I'm not me.
Yeah, that's awesome. In 99, 2 months after I started the Prozac, um, I actually attempted suicide. And then when I got some help immediately, because I realized, hey, I don't really want to die. I just want this suffering to end. I just want to feel normal again. And they told me, no, because you reacted that way to Prozac, you are absolutely bipolar. So they gave me an identity. They said, you are bipolar. And so for years, I walked around saying, I am bipolar. And in 2014, 15 years later, man, I was in a mental hospital. I checked myself in to get some help. because I was still having a really rough time and I didn't want to be alive because I didn't know how to figure out how the hell to change it all, you know? And that was the best and the worst 4 days of my life, probably right there in that hospital.
Yeah.
They drugged me beyond recognition. I was drooling and I was walking around like an 80-year-old man that had two broken legs. But the blessing came when I went to group for the first time and heard some other stories and was able to relate to people on different levels and learn a lot from their stories and what they had to say. And that's why I just love doing these podcasts, because I learned so much. Like just today, I've learned more about herbs and things than I ever thought I would. Just, and there's so much more out there to know that, you know, isn't available to people that aren't looking. But
Yeah.
once we're looking,
Well, and it's hard too, because like you don't think to just Google simple things like that. Like if you were to Google, hey, herbs for this, like it would already start you on an amazing list, and then you could go from there. But how many people think like one plant's going to help with their mental state? Like they're like, I've tried all these pills, they haven't done anything for me. Like how could a simple leaf do something for me? And so that's, I think, a big thought. We've lost that connection with plants that we used to only use. Like for thousands of years, people would use certain herbs for like the mind or the spirit or the body. They'd go see a shaman or like their local medicine man or woman. And somehow we got out of that and had quite, like the last 200 years of trying to take the essences of plants and condense them down into a magic pill instead of like letting a combination of a few plants just do what it's doing right already. And that's like a big argument my sister and I have, where she's like, it's not like, it's the FDA has no control over it and there's no specific dosing. And I'm like, but that's why they come in to see someone like me to start on small doses and do it if an herb I know it's toxic or something, I'm not going to have them do it for a long period of time. And so like as long as you are doing a good job of researching all the pros and cons, like you can then learn that like, oh, this medicine should be respected and taken in small quantities until I feel like it's helping with me. Or other herbs that are gentle, like skullcap, that you can drink on a really regular basis without really any downside. And so my sister and I constantly argue about that, where she's like, this is regulated and controlled and like has instructions on how to use it. And I'm like, well, no human's the same. We're all different body weights. We all have different body chemistries. Like saying this one pill that's regulated by the FDA should be taken this amount of times a day still might not be true. And so that's a big thing, like with the modern culture. People think that just because some group that's in charge of deciding what's okay and what's not is what should be, the deciding factor, instead of just trusting our ancestors and thousands of years of medicine just because it doesn't have a label.
yeah. The reason I needed to hear, balance between pharmaceuticals and plant medicine is because I'm kind of hardcore against big pharma now, man.
Yeah,
After my experience.
I mean, I definitely don't like them. I went through the ringer with both inhalers and then pills, but then I see like my mom, who is just super anxiety ridden, started taking like a simple anti-anxiety medicine and has just chilled out so much more. And I'm like, okay, well, maybe there are some good ones, like not for everyone, but like
Yeah.
my mom is so much like lower key and less stress, and she's super OCD about germs, like unincredibly, like it was just awful to deal with. And she's relaxed a lot on that. So I still don't know what to think. Like I don't like the idea of big pharma and all their payoffs and
Yeah.
cutting corners just because they have a
Trillions.
lot of money. But at the same time, like there are some good parts to it.
Yeah.
Like surgeries is one of them, like open heart surgeries, helping heal like defects in the heart. There's no herb that can, close up a hole in the heart that you were naturally born with. So that's why I'm always like, I can't dismiss it completely. I just wish that they would combine together and doctors would do more herbal advice and learn about herbs. So they're not suggesting all these crazy medications when it's someone with like, oh, I had an anxiety attack because of finals. Instead of shoving a Xanax down their throat, they're like, oh, here's a simple tea. Just drink it when you get stressed out. It's not habit forming and won't cause an addiction.
That's wild.
Like that would be a nice balance to have.
Yeah.
And that'd be cool. Like that's what I want for the future is just doctors saying, hey, go over to this local herb shop and talk to them about it first, and then come back to me if you've tried a bunch and spent a few months trying out different herbs and really giving it an honest try. And if that doesn't work, like we have a more potent and possibly more side effects type of medicine for you.
Yeah, I love that perspective. And I've noticed a lot of doctors that I've been following for 4 or 5 years now on social media are heading in that direction more and more and using food as a medicine and a healer.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's something I'm not super well versed with. My sister does, she works at a eating disorder clinic and like helps people get on their feet again from like anorexia or certain eating disorders that came on about like just with a simple like, oh, I'm gonna go vegan because I've read that it helps people, and then they just take it too hardcore. So I'm very careful at the herb shop to not give as much dietary advice because I haven't studied it a lot.
Yeah.
And like I definitely recommend people like, hey, you know, you want this weight loss herb. How about you look into, changing up your diet to more like a fruits and vegetable diet. Still like don't cut anything out, but like little dietary advice like that I'll give because certain things there's no magic herb or pill that you can take just to help with, and it does require a lifestyle change too.
Oh, yeah,
And
big time.
just like a simple reminder from someone else sometimes is like all it takes for them to start getting educated more on, hey, I could take these herbs to help, but then also take this lifestyle change and work them together to have a way better effect on my body.
I love that. In 2014, when I got out of that hospital, I was with a woman that helped me to get off the medications, and I was terrified. I was always told for years by the doctors, you get off this and you'll kill someone else, you'll kill yourself, you're a danger to society. And I was like, oh my God, I was terrified.
Yeah.
I ended up transitioning off of those within a few months, got my mind back, and I was able to think like critical thinking and have an opinion. And it didn't go well in the marriage for me to have an opinion, so we got a divorce. And then eventually I came across from a stranger that it was in my cab one day, a documentary called Fed Up. It was about sugars. Come to find out, my diet was causing so much inflammation, all the sugars and the carbohydrates that I was ingesting, like over ingesting, because I used that as my addiction. Food was my go-to. I weighed like 265. I was a big unhealthy dude, and my brain was so swollen and inflamed that it was pushing on points. The skull was pushing in, and causing symptoms of someone who is massively depressed, anxiety ridden, bipolar. And as soon as I cut sugars out, after the first 2 weeks, I started feeling better. 6 months later, I had dropped 60 pounds and I had zero symptoms. And I was like, food, really? That's it?
Yeah. And that's something I tell people a lot at the herb shop. I'm like, there's sometimes like, I don't know, like with the anxiety and depression part, a lot of the time they're telling me about their lifestyle because I usually try and ask about that. And I'm like, I'm not saying you need to go work out every day, but like getting out and like into nature and walking around and having some form of stimulation like that and exercise could be all that you need instead of like some, like I say sometimes, like a magic tea. Like it really is a big part. Like they all go hand in hand: diet, exercise, and like what you're putting in your body, whether it be medicines or herbs or whatever. Like you can't just have one of those things do everything. It needs to be in a balance.
Yeah. There's that word again, balance, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And, and that's
What
different
life's
for
all
each of
about.
us.
Yeah.
So I love it. And to sort of recap and review, there are other possibilities besides hardcore medications over the counter. There are natural ways to heal pretty much everything. And it may take time to find out what those are. You've said that writing, journaling, learning how to use psychedelics to sort of meditate on issues, and being able to let it go by the end of the experience. Communication without expectation, or trying to emotionally bleed all over everyone as you're trying to get these things out and let them go. I really loved that. Um, you had talked about bouncing ideas off of opposing views, like with your sister. I mean, she's one way of thinking, you're another, and being able to communicate and really ask each other questions and learn from one another. That's fascinating to me. I think that's really important. And you said something at the very beginning I loved, that was, always be learning, be open to all things, and always be learning. I've
Yeah,
gotten a lot from you in this
thank
short
you.
period of time, and I really appreciate it.
Yeah, I appreciate you having me on here. It was a
And
good experience.
are there any words of wisdom, things you've learned over the years that you would like to leave the guests with? Any suggestions on possible upgrades in their own spiritual work, their mental, emotional, the way they feel, their physical body? What are great ways of being that you've learned that you would suggest to others?
I mean, one of my favorite kind of ideas I've ever learned in this life was like we're always teachers and the students. Like you need to constantly be willing to learn and be taught by people. You never know everything, but at the same time, when you have a perspective and you know that, like, hey, I know this information will really benefit this person, you need to also learn to teach them. And so that's something I try and remember a lot. Like anytime I'm in an argument or like having like someone's trying to tell me something and I don't want to be receptive, I really remind myself like I don't have to agree with it, but maybe at the end of the day, I will learn something that I can use in some way and gain knowledge and just be a better human. And the people that I see that act like they know everything and are just really stagnant, I'm always just like, I never want to get to that way personally. Like, I never want to feel like I'm all knowing or anything because we never are. Like, no matter what goes on in this life, you can always still learn. You could live for 10,000 years and still be learning from other people, and whether it be a person that's not in a house, that's like walking the road, or whether it be like someone that's like a super billionaire like tech. Like everyone has something to teach everyone else, and everyone has something to learn from everyone else.
I agree with that. And that's something that's really important, I think, for all of us to remember and align with on a daily basis. Like we're all teachers and we're all learners and we're all in this together. And I think we're here for one another. I mean, the biggest miracles of my life have happened through other people, for sure.
Yeah, I
Um,
agree.
what was your most challenging or difficult life experience that you now regard as the most valuable?
I mean, like for me, life in general, like I've always struggled with like relationships. And like about a year ago, that's when I relapsed. I just had like a really, I guess, awakening moment, and something that was just so hard for me to be okay with. And sometimes still, like, it still pains my heart, is just like being okay with letting someone go if that means they're going to be happier, or like maybe not letting them go, but being okay with their decision to maybe not include you in their life or have affection for you anymore. And I've had two relationships like that where I just was really in love and really loved that person, and then they didn't feel the same after a certain period of time, and that just like crushed me. And both times literally made me go through a pretty big sleuth of drugs just to like forget that feeling for a bit and like not dream or whatever it may be, because it just haunt me for so long. And I don't know, like recently I got some DMT, and that's when I really finally was okay with this last year's thing. Like I'd sobered up and been doing all right, but still it like was in my heart. And I just sat with some DMT and kept ingesting it. And like I was just at that point mere thoughts, and just finally like sat down with that pain and was just like, it's okay. Like she will be happier, and I need to be happy with that. Like if I truly love someone, I should be just wanting them to be happy first and foremost, whether that's with me or without me or however it may be. And so that was like a really big learning point, like very recently in my life, that beforehand I struggled with. And that first relationship that took me years, where I couldn't even listen to music that we had listened to before. And so that's something I guess that I'm going to keep in mind more so in all my relationships, of like, you can't hold on to everything. You can't change something that's not going to change, or work harder to make it better. Like you just sometimes need to be okay with letting go. And it may hurt, and that's okay for it to hurt, but think of them and what they need before yourself. Like that oftentimes we need to do in life, like put others before yourself and your feelings, and be happy for them, and then you can be happy too.
Wow, that's beautiful. Thank you for sharing that. I know that you still feel it deeply. And that's one of the things that I've noticed I really love about you, is that you feel things deeply, man. And that's what life is about. Not being on some medication that makes you stable and
Yeah, or
evens your moods
fearless,
out, you know.
be
It's
a
nice to
zombie.
go up and down. Yeah,
Yeah,
for
yeah,
sure.
I've embraced it more for sure. Like highs and lows. When I'm in the lows, I'm expecting like, and you know, going to be grateful for when I'm on that high.
Yeah, the contrasts make life more beautiful for sure.
Yeah, if everything was just stable, it'd be gray and boring. Like some of your lowest points, when you get through them, you're just so appreciative of stuff. And I'm not saying like you need to suffer to be appreciative, but when you get through those lows, you really are way more appreciative of things, and just like simple things. Like I was fishing on an island for 3 months. I went to Alaska, and it was just me and one other dude. And we had beans and rice every day and cup of noodles every day. And the whole time I just sit down and eat my food and just be like, I'm glad I'm eating. Like it sucks, but it's okay. And when I got off that island, I just had a massive meal and like was crying at the table, like, this food's amazing. And I was just thinking about that a lot, where I was just like, I didn't appreciate food until I had no food. And that's what brought on that greater appreciation. And now whenever I go out to eat, I'm always just like very grateful. And I wouldn't have had that without that suffering with rice and beans.
Oh man, did you get to eat fish at all? I mean,
A
was
little
that
bit.
part of the
We had fish like I think 6 times. It
dang?
was it was brutal. We lived it was just a tiny island with like I showered in cold water, like literally 33-degree water. I didn't clean for weeks on end. I stunk, and like I didn't talk with anyone else but this dude that was grumpier. Like he was nice and I enjoyed him, but he was just really, by the end of the trip, like I'd read tons of books, and I came back and I was just like conversing with anyone, like the cab driver. I was just like, I finally can talk to someone. I can finally eat food, and I can. This hot shower is amazing, and I think that's like important for people to realize. Like when you're in your lowest point, like you're gonna be appreciative of something when you get out of it. Like
Wow.
something's gonna just like really hit later on that you're like, man, this is great. Like I have a better appreciation for it now from that low point.
Hell yeah. And I'll tell you what, man, I get that, because that 15 years of complete and utter suffering and darkness that I was in, it's almost like it slingshotted me to the opposite extreme. And I've learned how to really fully appreciate the little things in life. Like every day, man, everything is beautiful. It's compared to that. I mean, damn right.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. That's why when someone asks how my day is, I'm always trying to like really think about it and be like, it's swell, like it's beautiful, and like really think about those answers, because too often or not, like I'll go someplace, I'm like, how are you? And they're like, awful. And I'm like, "Yeah, you're alive. Like you have a job right now. You have clothes on your back. Like how can you be awful? Like, sure, that coworker over there could have been a dick or something, or whatever it may be, but like in the grand scheme, you should be very grateful. And that's something we don't often do here in our current world.
Truly, truly. There's two practices I began back in 2014 that I had heard on some podcasts and through reading books. And one was gratitude. First thing every morning in the shower, I'll go over a mental list of the things I'm truly grateful for. And they now have shown, like through the work of Dr. Dispenza, Bruce Lipton, I mean, your neurons rewire to support what you think about repetitiously. And your chemicals align with that repetitious thought and then are injected into your body and create a feeling of wholeness, of aliveness, of wellness, of beauty, that carries on throughout the morning at the very least. And if you want to make it continue, bam, lunchtime. Okay, another gratitude. Let's see what we got here,
Yeah.
And that's great. It's useful.
Yeah. One of my friends, he went through the ringer with like addiction and stuff as well. And now he's like literally the most positive person ever. And I think that's what was a big inspiration for me this second round of being sober, was just like having a mentality more like him. And it's really cool to see him, like, no matter what comes up, he'll like positively express it and like tell the person like, well, what are you grateful for? Or like, what did you learn? And like, I've seen it, and I just know, like, I know for a fact he was in a dark place and just going through a lot, and now he's a super positive person. And it's the practice he does of, like you said, being grateful for everything. And every time I ask him how he's doing, he's just like talking about things he's grateful for, and it's just like a really beautiful practice to have. And I started doing that recently. I got mala beads and keep them on my wrist, and instead of just saying prayers or like any type of prayer, I tend to like just grab them and say things I'm grateful for, like thank the divine spirit or whatever someone might be praying to, like, thank you for this breath in my lungs. Like, I at one point couldn't breathe very well, and it's nice to have full breaths. Thank you for the sun. Like, it's beautiful outside. During the summer, it's boiling hot and I can't stand it. And now it's perfect out. So like those little things, that little reminder while you're going through and just doing bead after bead, you really do start to realize, like, holy crap, I have a lot to be appreciative for. Like, I went through this giant bead bracelet that I have, and not a single bead was the same. I have that much to be grateful for just on a day, like one day. Like, how could I ever be upset or down?
That's a really great idea to sort of infuse those beads with thoughts of gratitude and that's sort of programming the beads with a certain kind of a vibration or an energy that you can wear around your wrist like you do. And I think that's a really cool
practice. While you're walking, they bang against your wrist. They are like slightly too big, so they want to come off. And then you kind of grab them and you're like, oh, well, I'm walking down the street. Why don't I'm waiting in line at this restaurant. I'm doing this at the grocery store, whatever it may be. And it's just like a way better reminder, them tinkling into your hand, and you just saying 5 things you're grateful for. And yeah, after a week or 2 of doing that, you're just way more appreciative of little things, because you're constantly having it thrown into your face. And like, you're thinking hard about things you're grateful for that you normally wouldn't ever be grateful for, just because you're running out of space with the beads. Like, all right, what's something else I haven't been thankful for today?
That's so cool. I love that practice. Now, there was another thing that I started doing as well, and it was writing, like you have started doing as well. And I did get that from a therapist, and I began writing a daily entry, and I would pick a topic that I wanted to expand into and get better at and learn more about and study and sort of, become. And it's on the Good in the Head website at goodinthehead.com. When you go to the menu, it's called My Daily Perspective Shift. And each year now, I rewrite that same article that I'd written a year previous as a reminder and a repetitious reprogramming of self, sort of, that will help me continue to shift the perspective always, forever, as long as I write every single day. And that's been a really beautiful practice as well. Where do you want to go? Expand into that, envision it. And like my friend Jason Archer says, remember your future. If you can think about where you're headed and meditate on that on a daily basis and then expand into it mentally, the physical realm begins inside of us. We create everything. And
Yeah.
so that was a good practice. I love that one too.
Yeah.
Um,
It's crazy how like manifesting really is a thing.
hmm,
From a scientific point of view, like I went to school for aerospace engineering. So hearing that for the first few times, I was like, how could that work? How could I even begin to envision myself doing that? And then just through practice and psychedelic use and like just, it takes one thing that you really focus on and really try and manifest in your life, and then it comes true just so easily, and you're like, okay, maybe there is something to this, and it just starts you on the process. So things like writing is a really good way to start practicing that, where you're just writing, like you said, what you want to focus on or do or whatever it may be. And the more you're starting to write it, the more that thought's becoming in your mind and turning into a reality, which is really cool.
that is. And truly, I mean, whatever we focus on, we're feeding, we're energizing, we're activating it at an atomic cellular level. We are in control of these things once
Yeah.
we realize it.
Yeah. And you have to be practical too. Like you can't,
Jump off a building and
manifest
fly.
yourself to fly. Yeah. But like in general, like life goals and stuff, like you can reach any goal you have if you believe in it and work hard for it and wake up every day doing your best to achieve it. Like humans are pretty crazy. Like you can see someone in a wheelchair climbing a mountain. You can like just tons of things like that where I see videos of people doing something that probably their whole life they were told they couldn't do, but they believed and they did it. And it's really cool to see us as a species like being able to achieve so much just because of one person's inspiration. If you think like that, you really can do anything.
Just one person can send ripple effects into the eternities to come with kindness, with one act, let alone a lifetime of service, which is where I see you. You're sending out ripple effects that may literally alter the trajectory of one individual that could affect thousands or even millions in time.
Yeah. Yeah. That's something I remind myself about too. Like, I don't necessarily have to achieve greatness. Like, that's not something I really ever have cared about doing. Like, I don't want to be famous, but like, I potentially, yeah, could touch someone just even with my simple little class, like save someone and they go on to do something miraculous. Like, you got to think like that too when you're trying to be nice and kind to people. Like,
It
you
matters.
never know how much you're going to change in someone and then what they can do for everyone else too. Like that ripple effect really is a big real thing. And if you're trying to make the world a better place and you're just doing small things, you may change some course of someone else that really has a huge effect on the world, even if you don't want to.
Absolutely. Man, that well said. I love that.
Yeah,
Um,
it's cool.
A little while ago, we were talking about different remedies for anxiety. I had my first panic attack about 4 years ago, starting a new job, 6 months in, and didn't realize that I was holding my breath throughout the day, 8, 10 hour shifts, whatever. And I wasn't breathing correctly, and it was affecting me. And I thought I was having a heart attack. Went to the ER. They put me through all the rigmarole, all the testing, and doctor came out with a big grin. And I'm like, "What's so funny? I'm
Yeah,
dying."
yeah,
And he said, "Dude, there's nothing wrong with you. You had a panic attack." And not 3, 4 days later, I came across a podcast with Mark Devine, who was a Navy SEAL, trained some Navy SEALs, and I heard about box breathing for the first time. And so began doing that throughout the day. I'd even set alarms to remind myself, hey, breathe, breathe. But then came across some Wim Hof guided breathing exercise. I've been doing it almost every single day this last year as an experiment. And holy crap, dude, night and day, it's
yeah.
very effective.
I swear I didn't even have asthma problems. It was all anxiety and I just didn't know it. And that's something I think about a lot too with like my lung health now. I'm like I play didgeridoo, not professionally or anything, but just as a way to breathe slower and breathe out all the way. And it's just crazy how like yeah, I don't get tight lungs anymore. I used to like watch a movie scene even where someone's having trouble breathing and it trigger that like panic attack sensation where I'd feel like I literally couldn't like breathe in all the way. And it was just because I wasn't slowing down enough and breathing. And it's cool. There's like a lot of books out there that you can read on and just find some practice that works for you, whether it be like me, I just sit and pray, and that allows me to take my mind off my breathing enough to breathe normally again. Or you can do guided breathing exercises to get your breathing back in check. Or you could do like I do and play an instrument. And same thing, like you're taking your mind off of it. You're finally being in the moment with one other thing other than your thoughts on that anxiety. And it's just crazy how much it can help. Like we don't breathe good enough a lot of the time. Too much tension in our society. And like for years I struggled with that. And the more now I get stressed, if I ever do get stressed now, I'll just go sit, do a little breathing exercise, and it helps my anxiety so much. And I don't have to use my inhaler anymore. It's crazy.
The results don't lie, and there are literally limitless tools available to anyone that seeks them out.
Yeah.
I
We
like
live in
that.
an amazing time where you can literally Google anything. That's what I tell people a lot. They ask how I know so much about just herbs and stuff. I'm like, I can access anything I want. If I enjoy it, I'll find it out on the internet. Learn how to cook certain things, do certain practices, make tons of stuff I love making, like lotions or salves or whatever. And it's all there on the internet. The internet has every single piece of information pretty much made by humans now.
That's so cool. You know, you're a fascinating guy. You're highly intelligent. You've lived some life. You're a good dude, and I'm really glad that we connected. And I really appreciate you coming on the Good in the Head podcast today, man. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm super grateful to be here and talk with you.
Now, for anyone who wants to learn more, connect with you, or maybe come to one of these Friday night classes, where can they get more information about that?
So you can check out our website. It's just like Google Happy, Healthy, Horny, High Herbs in Tempe. And then you can click on the website. And Chloe, the owner, has like a blog and posts a lot of information there. So that's a really good resource. Or you can find us on Instagram. Same thing, the Happy, Healthy, Horny, High. Just Google that, the one for Tempe, because there's a few locations throughout the world.
Hmm.
And just look for the one that's like recent post, because I think there's an older one we've never been able to delete because we forgot the password. But like today, my class was posted on the website, or I mean on the Instagram. The Chloe, the owner, who's just an amazing woman, does like a lot of outreach through her Instagram, and like you can always reach out to her through there too, which is really cool. But that's probably one of the best places you can figure out about these. I'm going to be trying to do it on the first of the month. For people that are like curious, you can just keep an eye on that, and we do it right after the shop closes. So like tonight it's at 8. But yeah, just Google our website, try and find Chloe's personal blog. I personally don't have any social media or anything, just because that was too much of a stress on me, and I just decided to cut it from my life. So I'm a little bit harder to reach, but you can always stop in the herb shop too. I work quite a bit and just talk that way too. I'm always happy to have someone coming in looking for knowledge or something, and I'll talk as long as I have some free time.
Awesome. And I'll go ahead and look those up and put those in the show notes on YouTube under the show in the links. And I love you as a person. I love what you're doing. I really appreciate you as a human being. Thanks, man. Keep it up. Keep going, dude.
Thank
It's
you. I appreciate
inspiring.
what you're doing too. Like when I met you and then looked up your site, I was like, I love the vibe of this. This is something that I really resonate with. So I'm grateful for you as well.
All right, man. Let's keep going.
Yeah.
All right.